Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm Doug Downey, Ontario's Attorney General, and today I'm proud to be here with my colleagues to announce that this afternoon our government will introduce new legislation to protect Ontario through Safer Streets and Stronger Communities Act. As the Premier reminded everyone yesterday, it was just 2 months ago that our government received a strong mandate from the people to protect Ontario. It's a mandate to protect our workers and businesses from tariffs and economic uncertainty, but it's also a mandate to protect our communities and make our streets safe. The proposed changes and related measures that we're introducing today, building on our government's ongoing work to strengthen public safety and protect Ontario communities. You see a group of us here today because our ministries have worked hard on initiatives related to this bill. It's truly a cross-government initiative, and I'd like to start by reiterating some of the important measures that we announced earlier this week to strengthen our justice system, protect our communities, and help put repeat violent offenders behind bars. As many of you know, the pressure on our courts continues to grow. We need to support Ontario's judiciary by taking important steps to help keep pace with the complex and rigorous work being done by prosecutors. The courts need to hold offenders accountable, protect victims, and uphold the law. We also know that more needs to be done to help our hardworking police to investigate and arrest those who break the laws. That's why we're introducing new tough-on-crime measures to help strengthen our justice system. To start, we're proposing new changes to the Courts of Justice Act to speed up the appointment of judges to the Ontario Court of Justice. This will support our plan to deliver faster access to justice for victims of crime and help them avoid the grief and anxiety that comes with long delays. Our government recently made history by significantly increasing court capacity at the Ontario Court of Justice with a $29 million investment to add at least 25 new judges to the court. And this year, our government is going further by allocating 17 additional judges to the Ontario Court of Justice. This is historic progress as we work to reduce pending cases before the courts and ensure they are resolved in a timely manner. It's all part of our plan to increase capacity and protect Ontario. Violent crime is on the rise, and we are doing whatever it takes to keep people and our community safe. As part of our efforts to crack down on serious crimes like auto theft, our government announced our plan to amend the Highway Traffic Act to give police the authority to search for and seize electronic devices that are intended to be used for vehicle theft. We're helping law enforcement by delivering stronger tools to crack down on illegal key fob programming devices, fob scanners, and some smartphone applications, helping disrupt criminal activity. In addition, we're making the dedicated major auto theft prosecution response team permanent with a focus on crime hotspots across Ontario. The prosecution team provides legal advice and prosecutorial support to police services, and it helps dismantle organized crime networks. These new and permanent measures are holding offenders accountable, giving the police the tools they need to stop thefts before they happen, and keeping our communities safe. But we know there's more to do. And our government will do whatever it takes to keep our communities safe from criminals while delivering solutions to improve public safety. We often hear, too often, we hear about how the current bail system is failing. Revolving door bail policies from the federal government have led to violent crime in our communities. We need to keep violent repeat offenders off our streets. That's why we are introducing a three-pronged tough-on-crime strategy to strengthen our justice system and improve the existing bail system. We're giving prosecutors the tools they need to hold violent and repeat offenders accountable, and that means stronger bail teams, tighter monitoring, and faster action by the courts. These new measures build on the $112 million invested over 3 years to ensure that high-risk and repeat offenders simply comply with their bail conditions. We will continue working to ensure the justice system works to protect Ontario, support victims, and keep communities safe. We're also calling on the newly elected federal government to join us by strengthening bail to protect victims of crime. As you can see, our government is taking action to keep communities safe and protected from crime. In addition to these changes, the province is expanding its dedicated guns and gangs units in targeted regions across the province. This will bolster our border security by addressing the impact of illegal firearms coming into Canada. And since 2018, Ontario has invested over $358 million under the Guns, Gangs, and Violence Reduction Strategy. It's with the support of the federal government, and we are protecting Ontario from violent gang members who threaten our people with illegally obtained firearms. If passed, The Protect Ontario Through Safer Streets and Stronger Communities Act will improve the efficiency of our courts and help stop the revolving door-style criminal activity that puts people at risk. We're making historic changes that would improve capacity and efficiency in the court system, introducing stronger measures to hold offenders accountable and helping fight crime. These tough on-crime measures are putting violent repeat offenders on notice, and we will continue doing whatever it takes to protect Ontario. Now I'll pass it over to Associate Minister Tibolo to share more news of what you can expect in our announcement today. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Thank you, Minister, and good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here this morning, and before I begin, I want to say how happy I am to be alongside Minister Downey as the Associate Attorney General. I've enjoyed getting started on the work to improve our justice system, protect the people of Ontario from crime, and keep our communities safe. And I'm proud to be here alongside all my colleagues to support changes our government is making to get tough on criminals and crucially support victims of these heinous crimes. With the introduction of the Protect Ontario Through Safer Streets and Stronger Communities Act, we're proposing changes that would protect children and youth, support victims and survivors, and keep repeat and violent offenders off our streets. That's why today I'm proud to announce that we're updating the regulation under Christopher's Law, a law that mandates that anyone convicted of a sex offense in Ontario has to register with the police in their community. It's a good law, and we're strengthening it so that child sex traffickers are also included on what will now be known as the Ontario Sex Offender and Traffickers Registry. This will make it even easier for our police services to keep our communities safe. And we're taking bold action to build a province where everyone can live safely and criminals are put behind bars. On top of these efforts, our government is delivering justice for those who have been victimized by heinous crimes like intimate partner violence. We know from survivors that this abuse can be physical, emotional, mental, or all three. This can leave people feeling powerless and alone, anxious and/or depressed. Nobody should live in fear like this. No one should live under these deplorable conditions. And that's why we're also proposing increased tools to address intimate partner violence by amending the Family Law Act and the Children's Law Reform Act to make restraining orders against abusers more accessible. Additional persons would be able to apply for a family restraining order on behalf of individuals in need of protection, including designated representatives or other persons with permission of the court. This builds on our government's plan to end gender-based violence and our anti-human trafficking strategy. We will always fight to protect victims and survivors of crime as we work to strengthen community safety. Now, many of us have heard disturbing stories about the rise in human trafficking here in Ontario and across the country. There's no place for this in the province of Ontario. And to help build on that commitment, our government will bring into force the Accommodation Sector Registration of Guests Act on January 1st, 2026, which will help to combat human trafficking in hotels and the short-term rentals sector. This will provide police with the tools that they need to help investigate human trafficking, as they could be more easily obtained related information obtained by hotels and other prescribed businesses. We're also proposing to proceed with consultations on regulations to support the implementation of Bill 41, the Protection for Coerced Debts Incurred in Relation to Human Trafficking Act. This would reduce the financial hardship survivors face because of human trafficking and allow them to make progress on their path to recovery. We'll also explore changes to make it easier for creditors to sue traffickers to recover a coerced debt through a statutory claim. Today's comprehensive new measures build on our government's plan to strengthen tools to protect victims and survivors of crime and keep communities safe across the province. Thank you very much, and now I'll turn it over to Minister Williams.
Thank you, Minister Tibolo. Good morning, everyone. It is fitting that we are making this announcement today on the first day of Sexual Violence Prevention Month, because the proposed legislation and measures we are introducing today are the result of collaboration across government to protect Ontarians by keeping our communities safe. At the center of this work is our focus on protecting children and youth, while supporting victims and survivors of intimate partner violence and human trafficking. The measures that we are introducing today build on our 4-year action plan to end gender-based violence, providing stronger supports for victims and survivors. And we are taking further steps by renewing our anti-human trafficking strategy for another 5 years. The strategy renewal will provide an investment of more than $345 million over 5 years that we can continue to raise awareness, protect victims and intervene early, support survivors, and most importantly, hold offenders accountable. Our renewed strategy will also continue to protect children and youth from sex trafficking. In the first 3 years of the previous strategy, service providers helped more than 20,000 people affected by human trafficking. Renewing our strategy means that even more victims and survivors of human trafficking will get the wraparound supports they need to heal and rebuild their lives. It also means that more offenders will be held accountable through our justice system. And it means that more children and youth who are being sex trafficked or who are at risk of being sex trafficked will get the help they need through specialized services like our Children at Risk of Exploitation units. These care units are a new and innovative approach that are showing great success. The first 2 units in Toronto and Durham are serving more than 200 children and youth each year. And we are in the process of establishing a 3rd care unit in Kenora. The success of our anti-human trafficking strategy relies on the dedication and the collaboration of service providers, victim services, child welfare professionals, law enforcement, Indigenous communities and organizations, and so many others. Thank you for all the work that you do at the front lines. Our government is determined to protect Ontario, keep Ontarians safe, and support women's well-being. And we will continue to work together to build a province free of violence and exploitation, and a province full of opportunities, because we know that when women succeed, Ontario succeeds. Thank you so much, and I will turn it over to Minister Kirchner.
Good morning. I'm pleased to join my colleagues today for an announcement that will help support victims of crime and keep people safe. As I said yesterday when I was with the Premier, that Protect Ontario does not mean anything. It means everything. 25 years ago, another progressive conservative government under the leadership of Premier Mike Harris passed Christopher's Law. It was passed to protect the safety and security of the people of Ontario by establishing Canada's first sex offenders registry. Any person who has been convicted of a designated sex offense must register with the Sex Offender Registry, including individuals who have been convicted of sex crimes in other provinces or outside Canada. It gives police services access to the information and investigative tools they require to prevent and solve these awful crimes. And it enables law enforcement to pinpoint the names and addresses of every registered sex offender who lives near a crime scene. But we need to update the law to keep up with the times and to protect Ontario. We're strengthening Ontario's Sex Offenders Registry, Christopher's Law. The change we are making will better protect our children and vulnerable by providing police services with access to additional information to prevent, to investigate, and to solve these horrific crimes. And we're putting these criminals on notice that they will be held to account for their actions. They are simply not going to get away with it. This builds on our previous efforts and another example that under the leadership of Premier Ford, there has never been a government more dedicated to investing in public safety and supporting the efforts of law enforcement to crack down on crime. And again, to be clear, in the proposed legislation, we are updating Christopher's Law to include child sex traffickers on the Ontario Sex Offenders Registry. Under the leadership of Premier Ford, we will be relentless in combating crime and keeping our community safe. We are acting without modern-day precedent, with a singular focus, trusted by Ontarians, that our inherent right to live safely in our own homes and communities will never be compromised. The constancy of our unwavering support to everyone that keeps us safe will always be at the forefront of all of our actions. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Miigwech.
We'll now open the floor to questions. Please remember that the format is one question, one follow-up. You can come to the mic and state your name and outlet.
Yes, Minister Downey and Minister Kersner, would you both state for the record today, sir, do you agree, yes or no, with the Premier's suggestions that we should be electing judges?
I will answer your question, but I think we've got a protocol that I was asked to follow. So,
No, I think you can hear me just fine, Minister. I think you can hear me just fine. Yes or no, do you agree with the Premier's suggestion that we be electing judges, Minister?
I think the frustration that it comes from is real. He's expressing what we're hearing at the doors and what we're hearing from people. It's not something that we're pursuing, but it is important that we go after the offenders, the violent and repeat offenders, and the suite of things that we just talked about over the last several minutes. Those are the crucial things that we're talking about today.
Do you think the Premier understands, though, the importance of the independence of the judiciary? Like, if you give him a law tutorial or anything like that?
Look, everybody knows that judicial independence is a bedrock in a democracy, but the level of frustration that constituents and that the people that we serve have boils over into ways that we need to acknowledge and we need to do something about. We need to go after these repeat and violent offenders, and whatever tools we have to do, we need to use.
But Minister, the three Chief Justices of this province felt compelled yesterday to issue a statement explaining basic civics and what judicial independence is, prompted by the Premier's comments yesterday, your boss's comments. Doesn't that set off alarm bells? Isn't that embarrassing?
We have the three best Chief Justices in the country, right here in Ontario. We work very closely with them. It's very collaborative. We are building a stronger, better justice system in coordination with them. Their statement yesterday may have been targeted at the public just to reinforce what the bedrock of democracy is, and I accept their letter, accept their post as a baseline.
The Bar Association raised the issue of Donald Trump. The Premier, lots of people say yesterday, the Premier is sounding like Donald Trump. We're seeing in the United States an erosion of the rule of law. These comments are dangerous, aren't they?
The frustration that people are feeling when they don't feel safe in their own homes is dangerous, because that breaks down the tenets of society. When people are not able to feel safe in their own space, that's why we're going after the offenders. We're holding them to account. We're putting resources in. We're changing structure, and we're going to make justice fair but faster.
Minister, you're asking for the power to set criteria on the judges that are appointed. How can the public trust you to use that responsibly, given those inflammatory comments from the Premier yesterday?
I have criteria when I look at applications. What this does is make it public. If I give criteria to the committee, then it's public and transparent what that criteria is. So it's actually a move towards transparency.
What criteria are you going to set? You haven't been clear yet.
I haven't issued any criteria, but I do talk openly about having an understanding of victims, having an understanding of community, having a connectivity to the area that they have applied to serve. So I have very publicly talked about some of the criteria that I anticipate putting forward if this passes. But nonetheless, whatever it is, it'll be transparent and open to the public.
Minister, the Premier seemed to suggest yesterday about public justices' bail records. Is that something you support or are actually considering?
It comes from the same place of frustration, looking for ways to move the dial to protect Ontarians. And you know, there is a lot of data that is public, but we have an arrangement in Ontario that statistics are collected, but not released without judicial consent. So I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Minister, do you feel judges are too ideological?
You know, I'm not going to answer an open-ended hypothetical given whatever the situation is. I think everybody comes from somewhere. It's a human system. And that's why the application process and the vetting process that Ontario has, which is a gold standard, comes with an interview where the federal government does not, I think is an important piece of this so that the committee gets a sense of the individual beyond just what's on paper.
But they shouldn't just let the government do whatever the government wants, right? I mean, there's an important level of oversight. Would you agree, sir?
There are three branches of government. I think they all play an important role, and I think that the coordination and the goodwill that we have between those branches is at an all-time high. I think never before in the history of the government has there been a better working relationship with the courts than there is now.
How much damage control have you had to be doing since this frustrated rant by the Premier?
The damage control that I've been doing is working to improve the system because people are so frustrated out there. They don't feel safe in their homes. They don't feel safe in their driveways. They're seeing auto theft. They're seeing repeat violent offenders cycle in and out of bail hearings. They're seeing sureties not held to account. That's the damage that I'm dealing with.
Was your phone lighting up with whatever it was, calls or messages from the various legal organizations that we've all been hearing from?
Look, my phone's always on, always open. After our vigorous job interview in February, I can tell you the phone hasn't stopped since.
For the Minister of Health, Minister, why have we not heard from Dr. Moore amid this measles outbreak, which has more cases than the entire United States? He has said no to every single interview request, Minister.
Well, Dr. Moore has been working very closely with our public health units. I have repeatedly reminded people that it was over a year and a half ago that actually it was Dr. Moore that directed the public health units to ensure that they refocus their efforts to ensure that childhood vaccinations were up to date. He has worked collectively with public health units. Erie Shores, as an example, did an incredible job where they focused on getting a measles vaccine clinic up and running because that community was particularly hard hit. He's been working incredibly hard, and I just want to acknowledge and thank him for his work with the public health units.
Why can't you do a single interview? Is your ministry hiding Dr. Moore from the media, Minister?
Absolutely not. The work that Dr. Moore does, leading Ontario Public Health, leading all of the public health units, ensuring that they are focusing their efforts, we've made sure through Dr. Moore's leadership that there is sufficient vaccines for every public health unit who wants them. We have restarted a public education campaign that, frankly, was a recommendation of Dr. Moore to make sure that parents and caregivers understand the critical importance of getting that vaccine.
Can you expand on what you're considering when it comes to involuntary treatment and what sort of things you're considering when looking at models like BC versus Alberta?
So today's Justice Bill really is a call to make sure that we do the consultation that is necessary. These are individuals who, often because they have a mental health or addictions addiction, are coming in contact with our police services in our justice system. So individuals within our corrections facility using probation and parole have some programs available, but we want to talk to those individuals with lived experience, families who've been impacted, of course, clinicians who understand what addictions do and how they can impact people's lives. And the consultation that will begin ensures that we get that feedback to make sure that we provide the right advice to Cabinet and Ontario.
Minister, can you clarify if involuntary treatment will be a part of the State Municipalities Act that was reviewed yesterday?
The focus of today's press release and the bill that is being tabled today is very much justice focused. So we are talking about individuals who have been impacted and are in our corrections facilities or in probation and parole.
Is this out of the table? Is it out of the table?
Today's focus and the bill that is being introduced today, the justice bill that is being introduced today, is very much focused on individuals who have mental health and addictions. And often The only reason they are impacted by our justice system is because of those addictions.
But you
Thank you.
have buried it within, if you look at the links for this release, so why have you done that?
As you can tell, there are many, many ministries that are part of this government-wide legislation. Our role here is to make sure that we do that consultation, talk to the experts in the field, talk to the individuals who have lived experience. Look, there's no doubt that there has been an increase in the use of illegal and, frankly, deadly drugs in our communities and, yes, in our corrections facilities. And we need to do the work to make sure that any programs that we bring forward are actually going to help people.
This will be the last question.
As Deputy Premier, do you think the Premier's comments on judges were offside yesterday, Minister?
I think that the Attorney General spoke very well. We've all heard those examples. Listen, I remember a Georgetown mother who was killed because there was a restraining order against her partner, and it didn't work. He was out on parole, and he killed her. So I get the frustration, and I want to make sure that everyone is protected in Ontario.
Thank you, everybody. That concludes our announcement.